Buddha at the time was lecturing to the various bodhisattvas when he heard someone on the sacred banners and parasol calling, "Save me." One look with his eyes of wisdom and Buddha knew it was the soul of Na-A. Using the root of the lotus for bones and its leaves for garment, he recited the magic words of revivification and restored Na-A to life. With his newfound divine strength, Na-A succeeded in subduing the fiendish demons of 96 caves. His magic powers were so great that he later wanted to kill the Devaraja in order to exact vengeance for self-immolation. The Devaraja had little choice but to plead with Tathagata, who, of course, was an advocate of peace. He therefore bestowed on the Devaraja a compliant, yellow gold treasure pagoda of the finest openwork carving and filled with sari relics. The pagoda, in fact, symbolized Buddha on each level, and the entire edifice was bathed in luminosity. The sight of the pagoda thus would remind Na of Buddha, who was to be revered as the prince's true father, and that is how the enmity was dissolved. This is the reason also for Li Jing to be named the Devaraja pagoda bearer. Since he was at home today, at leisure, the Devaraja had not been carrying his pagoda, and he thought that Na-A had been seized by the desire for vengeance again. That was the reason he paled with fear. Immediately reaching for the gold treasure pagoda on the stand and holding it high, he asked Na-A, "Son, you've parried my scimitar with your sword. What do you want to say to me?" Abandoning his sword and kowtowing, Na-A replied, "Father King, you do have a daughter at the region below." "Son," said the Devaraja, "I have had only the four of you. What other daughter do I have?" "You have quite forgotten, Father King," said Na-A. "That other daughter was originally a monster spirit. Some 300 years ago she became a fiend who stole and devoured the fragrant flowers and treasure candles of Tathagata at Spirit Mountain. Tathagata sent us, father and son, to lead an expedition against her. When she was caught, she should have been beaten to death, but Tathagata gave us this instruction. For fishes reared in the ponds you never fish. For deer fed in the mountains long life's your wish. At that time, therefore, we spared her life, and in gratitude she took you as her father and your child as her elder brother. She was to set up our tablets down below, to which she would offer perpetual incense fires. Who would have expected her to become a spirit again and conspire to harm the Tang monk? When Pilgrim Sun searched through her lair, the tablets were found and charges were thus filed before the throne. This is your daughter by the bond of grace, not a sister of mine by blood." Astounded by what he heard, the Devaraja said, "My child, I have indeed forgotten the whole matter. What's her name?" "She has 3 of them," replied the prince. At her birthplace, she was originally called the golden-nosed white-haired rodent spirit. Because she had stolen the fragrant flowers and treasure candles, her name was changed to Bisected Guanyin. When she was spared and sent to the region below, she changed her name again to Mistress Ground Rushing. Only then did the Devaraja realize what had happened. Immediately he wanted to untie Pilgrim with his own hands, but Pilgrim had turned rowdy. "Who dares untie me?" he cried. "You can take me in ropes to see the throne. Old Monkey will then win his litigation." The hands of the Devaraja turned numb with fear, the prince became speechless, and the various subordinate officers retreated shamefacedly. Rolling all over the place in a tantrum, the great sage insisted that the Devaraja appear before the throne with him. Having no alternative, the Devaraja could only plead pitifully with the Gold Star to speak on his behalf. The Gold Star said, "As the ancients put the matter, one should be lenient in all things. The way you do things, however, is rather hasty. You've bound him, and you even wanted to kill him. This monkey happens to be notorious in casting blame. Now what do you want me to do? According to what your son has told us, she is not your daughter by blood, but only by bond. Nonetheless, that is still an important tie of kinship. No matter how you dispute the matter, you are somewhat guilty." The Devaraja said, "If the Venerable Star would speak on my behalf, then my guilt will be absolved. I would like indeed to pacify you both," said the gold star. "But I don't quite know how to plead for you." "Why don't you?" said the Devaraja. "Just mention the former incident, when you went to him on your mission of pacification and gave him his appointment." The gold star did indeed go forward to touch Pilgrim and said, "Great sage, for my sake let us untie you so that we may all go see the throne." "Old minister," said Pilgrim, "you needn't untie me. I know how to roll, and I'll roll my way there." "Monkey, you're quite unfeeling," said the gold star, chuckling. "I was, after all, rather kind to you in times past. Now you refuse me even in a trivial matter like this. What sort of kindness have you shown me?" asked Pilgrim. The gold star said, "In those years when you were a fiend in Mount Flower Fruit, when you tamed tigers and subdued dragons, when you abolished the register of death by force, and when you assembled various monsters to perpetrate your delinquency, heaven above wanted to arrest you. It was this old man who boldly memorialized to the throne to issue a decree of pacification, and have you summoned to the celestial palace, and appointed you a ban-horse plague. After you had drunk the immortal wine of the Jade Emperor, and needed pacification once more, it was this old man's bold memorial also that got you the appointment of great sage, equal to heaven. But you did not behave, and went on to steal peaches, filch wine, and rifle elixir from Lord Lao. Only after this and that did you attain a state of birthlessness and deathlessness. But if it hadn't been for me, would you have reached this day?" Pilgrim said, "The ancients truly had put the matter well, even in death you should not share a grave with an old man. Like it or not, he knows how to carp. What's so big that I did? I merely disturbed the celestial palace as ban-horse plague. All right. All right. For your sake, venerable sir, I'll relent, but he himself must untie me." Only then did the Devaraja dare approach and untie the rope. Pilgrim was then invited to tidy his clothes and take the honored seat, after which the various deities went forward one by one to pay their respects. Facing the gold star, Pilgrim said, "Old minister, how about it? Didn't I tell you that I would lose first and then win? That's how one should do business. Let's urge him to go see the throne quickly, lest my master is harmed. Let's not rush things," said the gold star. "Having squandered all this time already, let's have a cup of tea first." "If you drink his tea," said Pilgrim, "you're in fact accepting his bribe. What sort of crime should you be charged with, when you free the felon on a bribe and slight the imperial decree?" "I won't drink his tea. I won't drink his tea," exclaimed the gold star. "Now you're even casting blame on me. Devaraja Lee, go quickly. Go quickly." But the Devaraja, of course, dared not go with Pilgrim to see the throne, for he was terribly afraid that the ape might turn rowdy once more. If he were to mouth all kinds of accusations before the Jade Emperor, how could the Devaraja hope to refute them? He had no choice but again to plead with the gold star to speak up for him. At length the gold star said to Pilgrim, "I have just one word for you. Will you agree to it? I have already overlooked for your sake the affront of being bound and hacked by the scimitar." Said Pilgrim, "Do you have anything more to say? Speak up. Speak up. If it's good, I'll listen. If not, don't blame me." The gold star said, "Remember the proverb, 1 day's litigation will take 10 days to settle. You file a charge before the throne, claiming that the monster spirit is the daughter of the Devaraja, and he denies it. The two of you can argue this matter back and forth before the Jade Emperor. Meanwhile, let me remind you that 1 day in heaven is equivalent to 1 year in the region below. For this whole year, the monster spirit has had your master imprisoned in the cave. Let's not mention a wedding ceremony. Even if it's a makeshift affair, by now she must have produced a little monk for him. Hasn't your delay upset the great enterprise?" Lowering his head, Pilgrim thought to himself, "Yes, indeed. When I left 8 Rules and Sha Monk, I told them that I would return after a time no longer than it takes tea to boil, or at most for rice to be cooked. I've messed around here all this while. Am I too late? He said thereby to the gold star. Old minister, how should we return this imperial decree? Let's ask Devaraja Li to summon his troops to go down with you to subdue the fiend. Replied the gold star. I'll return the decree. What will you say as your report? Asked Pilgrim. That the plaintiff has fled, said the gold star. And that the defendant has been dismissed from the case. How nice, said Pilgrim with a laugh. For your sake I'm dropping my charges, and you claim instead that I have fled. Tell him to call up the troops and wait for me outside the South Heaven Gate. I'll go with you to return the decree. Growing alarmed once more, the Devaraja said, if he starts talking once he gets inside the palace, I may end up with the crime of treason. What sort of person do you take old monkey for? Said Pilgrim. I, too, am a true man. Once my word is given, horses can't retrieve it. You think I would smear you with slander? The Devaraja then thanked Pilgrim, who left with the gold star to return the decree. The Devaraja at once called up the troops under his command and had them stationed outside the South Heaven Gate. Going before the throne with Pilgrim, the gold star said to the Jade Emperor,